Sports in the world today is mixed martial arts, which combines the disciplines of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, wrestling, Thai kickboxing, kung fu, and anything else you can dream up. The Ultimate Fighting Championship is gaining momentum. The league known as the UFC has become North America's fastest rising sport amongst adults ranging from 18 to 40.
But is the sport too violent?
Big right hand glove secured to the canvas.
Ooh, that's the question many are asking. And by the way, one of the men you see here is local Hamiltonian Jeff Jocelyn. And he joins us today to give us an inside point of view on this popular and violent sport.
And also here to wrestle with the controversial topic of ultimate fighting is sports columnist Scott Radley with the Hamilton Spectator. He joins us as well. Jeff, let's start with you. First of all, what are the rules, or are there any rules in ultimate fighting?
There are some rules, which is a good thing.
I'd say so, yeah.
There's no head-butting the opponent. There's no strikes to the groin. There's no biting. There's no sticking the fingers in the eyes or the other person's mouth. You know, that's pretty much, you know, the general rules there.
Scott, do you think that this sport is too violent?
You know what? At the outset, when you first look at it, you say it looks remarkably violent. And to be fair, there is a lot more, I think, a lot more bleeding and that kind of thing in it than in boxing. But I think it is safer, honestly, having watched both of them. I think it's a safer sport than boxing right now, and I think that despite the fact that you do get bleeding and you do get a lot of hand-to-hand combat, there haven't been a whole lot of very serious injuries in it.
Now, you actually went down and watched Jeff fight once.
I did.
Describe what you felt like when you saw him get in that cage and start fighting.
Well, I tell you, I mean, and Jeff will explain this himself, but you're sitting there, and I was 10 feet away from the cage, and it isn't like a lot of other sports because you realize that somebody could get hurt in there, and it does, as I say, it does appear violent. The gloves that they have on have barely any padding, and they are striking to the head, and they are kicking. But again, the guys who get in there, back in the old days of the UFC, which was when it started, you didn't have a lot of people who were trained in a lot of things. It was just tough guys who wanted to beat each other's brains in. Now they're all guys who have been trained in martial arts so they can defend themselves even when they get in trouble. So you don't get a lot of guys, as I say, who seriously get hurt because they actually know how to take care of themselves when they're in there.
Jeff, when you're fighting, when you're in the ring, do you do certain things instinctively that you learn through the various martial arts that you train for? A boxer, of course, gets in there and he trains. He knows how to counterpunch, knows how to throw a jab, knows how to throw an uppercut. When you're there, is it like a science? You know, you anticipate the other guy's move and you go for a certain move. And also, I guess you would know the other guy's strengths and weaknesses too.
Yeah, that's exactly it. When you're in the fight, you don't even think. It's just an automatic reaction. So in 1 second, a boxing move comes out, then a wrestling move, then a Brazilian jiu-jitsu submission, then an escape. It's just, it's an automatic reaction. You don't even have time to think. So sometimes after a match, I'll actually go back and watch the tape and say, oh, that was a good move. I can't believe I did that, or I should have did this. You know, it's. But for the untrained person watching it, you don't realize that that move was wrestling or that move was. Everybody knows a punch is a punch, but to see a jiu-jitsu technique or to see a wrestling technique, you almost have to be trained in it, or you know, to understand, you know, the game.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, but I'm watching this, and it's just about making my stomach sick looking at I'm serious.
Well,
I mean, I
you're not. I don't think you're who they're going for, though, Don.
Well, I want to ask you that, Jeff. Do many women watch this sport, and do they even participate in it?
You know, I've had great response from many both male and female fans, and you know, there's actually women competing in the sport too, not at the UFC level, but in smaller shows there are women competing in it, and I'm sure a lot of women follow it. Probably, you know, at first their boyfriends get them into it. You know, check this out. But you know, some of my most loyal fans turn out to be women. So,
is there money to be made in this sport? Is this just the start of something as big as, say, wrestling?
You know, once it got to regular TV with Spike, you know, the money has gone up a lot. It's become you know, a lot of potential for athletes to make money, and that's you know, turning a lot of heads, making a lot of people come from boxing and from wrestling and all these different aspects. Even the WWE, some guys are turning into mixed martial arts fighters.
Scott, sorry, I was going to say, in the last few years, pay-per-view has been huge, and it's all started years ago with boxing matches. You couldn't watch them on regular TV, so it would cost you $50 or $60 or whatever. You get a bunch of people together and get it on your local cable. Now you go to bars or restaurants, and they're packed for events such as WrestleMania, but also Ultimate Fighting Championships. You can't get into a bar when they're showing it.
Well, and what Donna and what you just said when you bring up wrestling, keep in mind what the area of TV that's really grown in the last few years is reality TV. This basically has become the reality TV for the kids and the teenagers who are watching wrestling. It is essentially wrestling, but it's real now. And it's something that has moved from, instead of the sitcoms, whatever, we watch Survivor or American Idol now, instead of wrestling, a lot of people have moved to this. It's more real, it's more authentic, and that's a lot of the audience that you're getting, is the people moving or doing both, watching wrestling and this.
Jeff, I want to ask you, I think it's pretty violent, and as I said, it just about made me sick watching what you were doing in the ring. You have young children. Do you let your son watch this?
I don't allow my son to watch my fights live, but after we get together, when I'm home with him and we watch it together, then if I get punched in the head, he knows I'm fine sitting with him, and, he just thinks it's a norm that his father does this. You're
such a soft-spoken guy, I just wouldn't expect this from you. How do you go from being such a nice guy to what you just did in the ring?
To being a not very nice guy.
To being a not very nice guy that I wouldn't want to have to meet in a cage.
That's the thing, you just have to, for me, there's no anger, there's no, I have so much respect for my opponent because I know the thousands and thousands of hours that I put in for my, to prepare for this fight. And, for me, it's a test of my skills against his skills. And whoever the better man is that night wins. And then we shake hands, maybe go have a beer together. And, it's a lot of respect.
But do you think that there should be restrictions in terms of who can watch it? Maybe, Scott, you can also answer that as well. It is, in my opinion, and I'm sure a lot of people will agree and disagree, because as Mark pointed out, you fill the bars up when you're fighting on the UFC. But is it too violent to be watching on television? Jeff, what do you think?
I will admit, when I first started watching it years ago, even it made me a little stomach sick at first. They had no gloves. They had different fighters of different weights fighting each other. It's just the referees didn't know what they were doing. But it's evolved so much as a sport, and the safety is, has become the primary concern, especially when it became available on regular TV.
Scott?
I don't allow my son right now, who's just turned 9, I don't allow him to watch wrestling on TV either. So this is one of the things that I don't know that you should necessarily put a PG-13 or something on it, but I think parents definitely have a responsibility. Jeff himself is fighting in this and keeps control over what his son is watching with this. So, I think it's a responsibility of a parent for sure to decide what your kid is going to watch and to be responsible about it.
Well, my kids watch it, and they think The Simpsons is more violent than UFC. One last thing before we go, Jeff. Do you get recognized on the street, and do guys ever challenge you to a fight?
That's a good question. A lot of people ask me that. A lot of people recognize because the UFC is so popular, but the response has been very, very good, and I've never really had a problem. I think the confidence that you get from mixed martial arts and martial arts in general gives you the ability to, kind of diffuse situations before they start.
One last question. When do you fight next?
My next fight's July 7th on pay-per-view.
Beautiful. Now, I know Donna wanted to take a swing at you earlier, but I think she's composed now.
I'll take a swing at you instead, Mark.
Well, like anything's different. Jeff Josselin, good luck. Thank you, Scott Radley. Thanks to you as well.
Thanks a lot for having
Thanks.
me.